In this video we're going to look at variables and one or two items to deal with PHP. I don't intend to teach PHP fully like I did with HTML. I'll leave that up to you to go and have a look at reference libraries and find out how it works through video tutorials elsewhere. But I'm just going to give you enough to have a play around with and maybe link back some thoughts to Python with what you already know. So first of all, let's close this down. Now that we've seen all of this working, we're fine with that. I'm probably going to have a shorter version of this as well. It's probably a bit too much to take into, so let's just delete that code. Right, so there's our handler, which has just got one line get first name. So whatever we pass in now, we really need to pass in just the first name. I need to come back and explain what happens when we include extra items on the line on the URL, but we don't have anything to deal with them here. I'm going to leave that for a bit later on because that is a major point of testing in PHP, particularly if it's not coming from a web page, if it's coming from a device or from Python. Then we need to check what's happening and pass back the correct messages, such as you need to send me more information or you've sent me too much information. So let's start off with sort of what it really looks like. PHP, unlike Python, more like HTML, it really doesn't matter about white space. Okay, to be honest, this is exactly the same line of code. Okay, exactly the same line of code. It can all be placed in one line. So if I save that, let's go back to this. Let's take this out and reload. There you go, it's worked. We only separate it because it just makes reading it and debugging it far simpler. And sometimes, you know, we might even sort of indent the code as is. That's the same as HTML. Obviously, Python doesn't do that. Python is very reliant upon having the correct white space on the lines. The other difference straight away is the fact that each line must end with a semicolon. Variables are a little bit different as well. At the moment, if I was to play with this, echo get first name, that's okay, but maybe I'd want to actually do some data processing with first name before I decide to echo it out or print it out. So really what I'm looking for are variables. So I'm going to create a variable now instead of this echo in Python, in PHP, sorry, and all variables begin with a $sign. The $sign indicates that it's a variable, and I can use first name. They are case sensitive, so please be careful. So there we go. I've got whatever is fetched from the URL is now stored in the variable first name. We know what that looks like in Python. It would just be first name equals raw input, enter your name. Now, if I've got the variable, I might want to sort of print that. That is straightforward as well. I can just use the statement I used before, echo, and this time I just use the variable name first name. If I save that again, I'm deliberately missing off the semicolon at the end of the line so that we can see what happens. So again, I'm going to have to take this out. Let's type in another one. Let's call it Joe this time and press enter. I've got Joe. I didn't expect that to happen. Most times when you miss a semicolon out or something, then you just end up with a blank page and you've got to go back and find out what's going on. So that's been a bit of a surprise to me. Probably because we never saved it. Let's try that one again. No. Well, as we go through, we're going to make plenty of errors that will crop up. Again, if I wanted to find out what the last name was and assign that to a variable, I can do the same sort of thing. So let me copy this. So I can have multiple variables. Last name. There we go. Equals get the last name. And obviously we need to echo out the last name also. So if I just copy that line of code, paste it here. Right, so now I've got two variables reading from the URL, and I'm storing both variables, first name and last name, and then I'm printing out both of those variables. So let's go for this one again. So this time we're going to need a last name, and when we press enter, okay, we didn't reload the page. Let's try it again. It always helps if you actually save the file. It's getting late in the day and I'm making simple mistakes. So let's try this one again. There we go, Joe Blogs. Not very good. As you can see, there's no space between Joe and blogs. If we were writing this in sort of Python, we'd want to have maybe a line like print Joe plus blogs. Okay, using the plus symbol to concatenate these two together. But then we would probably, that would print out just Joe and blogs unless I actually put a space in there. But I could actually include a space by just concatenating an actual space. There we go. That would be a Python statement to print Joe space blogs. We can do the same with our own items. So we've got first name and we've got last name. But the difference now is to join them together. Instead of having a plus symbol, we need a dot, a period. Okay, so that would join the two together. So if I just put last name, we'll see that. Let's take this line out. So that's joined the two together. So save it. Don't forget to do that, and then reload. Same as before. Let's prove it's different by having a space between the names. And don't forget, our concatenation now is with a period and not the plus symbol. And there we go. We've got the space occurring. So what we've looked at is we've looked at the fact that we can use variables. All variables start with a $sign. We need to end the lines with a semicolon. Perhaps it was because it was the last line. Let's see what happens if I just take that semicolon out and save it and reload the page. There we go. I knew we'd get an error message at some point. You might not see, you might have a blank page and not see an error message like this. The reason is that it's a switch that you need to turn on in your PHP ini file. If you've got that switched on and you see this, we're fine. If you can't see any error messages, then again, that's something that you need to have a chat with me about. Email me and I will show you where you turn that on. So anyway, let's go back, let's fix that and save the file again. So the last thing was concatenation. Joining strings together or what have you is with a period, a dot, rather than a plus symbol. So that sets us up with variables and joining them together. We're on our way now to actually manipulate the data. so that we can return it to the user in some sort of useful format.